The following program, General Grant Looks at the American Civil War, is a presentation of the Civil War Broadcasting Network. It is one of that series of programs wherein General Grant lifts up a person, place, or event in the war for review and reflection. It's available on the free YouTube channel Dr. E.C. Fields, on Facebook under Kurt Fields as General Ulysses S. Grant, and other social media. Permission to copy and distribute is granted and indeed encouraged. Remember, you are the future of our past. You find me here in my tent in Bloomfield, Missouri, not far from Cape Girardeau, I think about 25 miles. And I want to reflect with you about my time in Missouri from the time I entered it on July the 11th from Springfield, Illinois, until this day on November the 9th of 1861. Now, we crossed the river on July the 12th and went to Palmyra, Missouri. I was supposed to be chasing Tom Harris. And we went to, on the 15th, we went to the Salt River Bridge. It had been burned down, and we were there to guard the troops that were building it for the Hannibal and St. Joe Railroad. And while I'm there, we were sent after Tom Harris, who was a Missouri Guardsman, irregular, and was causing some problems. On that trip, about 25 miles to get to where he'd been camped, I had very strict orders: do not disturb any civilian property, whatever. And as we rode, I noticed two things. There was no one in sight, no people around any of the houses that we passed. And the other was the weight of command, because for the first time, I was leading nearly 1,000 men into combat, and my decisions could cost lives. And those eagles became very heavy. When we got to the creek bed where Harris was supposed to be, it was about 100 feet deep, a large creek bed area. And as we approached the edge of the creek where we would see him, my heart was in my throat, and I was really afraid. I thought the men next to me could hear it. I didn't have the moral courage to turn and run. I wanted to be anywhere but there. If I'd been Lieutenant Colonel rather and second in command, I would have been fine. But I wasn't. I was the man in command. And I didn't have the courage to run. I forced my horse to go on. When we looked into the creek bed, Harris was gone. He'd been there. Hadn't been gone very long, but it occurred to me that he was as afraid of me as I was of him. And that was a view of the question that I had never taken. I never forgot it for the rest of the trip, and I don't think I ever will forget it. I may have some trepidations about the outcome of a battle, but I'll never have any more fear. Well, we went to, on July 17th, we were sent to Florida, Missouri, looking for Harris again. We went through Mason, Missouri on the 19th of July and got to Mexico, Missouri on the 24th. And then we got news that on July 21st, the Battle of Bull Run had been fought, and the debacle that it was, and spirits were low because of that. But I was in Mexico about 3 weeks and drilling troops, and I got my copy of Hardy's Tactics and Drill and figured, well, I'll learn a lesson at a time in drill. Now, I was near the foot of my class at the academy in tactics, and hadn't done anything to study tactics since then. in the war with Mexico, I'd been a quartermaster, so I wasn't involved in tactics there. And now I felt I needed to particularly work with my officers, who were almost all civilians and needed the experience. So I started reading Hardee, and I realized we'd gone from Scott's manual in the academy with flintlocks to Hardee's tactics with working with our more modern weapons, and we didn't have to stop between every command. When I got the troops out in the area to drill, I realized to go with this manual, I would have to tear down several houses in the forest. So I decided I probably could get my troops to go where I wanted them to go, how I wanted them to go, without having to abide by the tactics manual. I didn't think much of it anyway. I thought it was just a French translation into English with Hardee putting his name on it, and I wasn't impressed with that. And I don't think that my officers to this day have ever suspected that I wasn't a master of Hardee's tactics. Well, while I'm in Mexico, I found out that on July 31st, President Lincoln had nominated me to be a Brigadier General, one of 6 from Illinois. And on August the 3rd, my chaplain, John Crane, came to my tent excitedly. He had a copy of the Missouri Daily Democrat and said, "You need to read this. You're a general, it seems." And I read my name, and I was very pleased. I was first on the list for the Illinois Brigadier Generals. And I said, I certainly had nothing to do with it, but I see the hand of Elihu Washburn in this, and gave the paper back to Chaplain Crane, went about my business. And that was on the August the 3rd. August the 5th, I was sent to St. Louis to confer with General Fremont, and General Fremont sent me to Ironton. I'm a Brigadier General that he really doesn't know what to do with. And he sent me to Ironton, Missouri. Now, Mexico was in the northern part of the state with Tom Harris up there. He sent me to Ironton, which is south, about 70 miles southeast of St. Louis. And I went there. I got there, I guess, August the 8th, and received confirmation that I had indeed, the Senate had confirmed me. I wrote my letter of acceptance. So as of, I think, August the 8th of 61, I was officially a Brigadier General, and I was very pleased. I allowed myself some pleasure. I was 18th of the Brigadier Generals that were appointed, number 1 from Illinois. And I was also, in terms of seniority and service, I was 35th in the command structure. Now, just mid-June, I was a civilian trying to get back into the Army and get in the war. Now, in early August, the 8th of August, I am a Brigadier General and 35th in line to command the United States Army. And I say that to emphasize how fast the Army and the war had grown and how big it was getting, because I was one of many Brigadier Generals, and being 35th in line of command, and I'm just one gear in a very rapidly growing machine. But I found out, we heard too, that on August the 10th, just 2 days later, the Battle of Wilson's Creek was fought, which was another debacle for the Federals. Nathaniel Lyons attacked a much larger Confederate force. He was killed in the combat, and a bad defeat. But I kept working there at Ironton. It was in disarray, some chaos, and I brought it under order. The citizens were appreciative. I stopped men carrying weapons outside the camp. I stopped them from stealing chickens and harassing the population, making them take the loyalty oath. And I said, don't alienate these people. They're friendly. Many of them are friendly to us, and there is no need to unnecessarily aggravate them. Let's keep friends friends. But on the 17th of August, Benjamin M. Prentice arrives and ceremoniously told me he was in command and I was relieved, and with no other instructions. So he took command, and I knew that I outranked him. You see, there in the rules and regulations, 1861 Rules and Regs, Article 1, Paragraph 5, a first lieutenant would know this. I'm surprised Fremont overlooked it. But Paragraph 5, Article 1, the first page of the manual, addresses officers of militia rank and their former rank in the regular Army. And I had felt that my captain's rank would do me some good. I stayed in the Army back in '54 to be sure to secure that captain's rank, because I thought I might need it again. And lo, it has come to pass that I did need it. I outranked Prentice, and he had been in the Mexican War a lieutenant. I had made captain after the war. My regular Army service was of a captain's rank. I outranked him without the 15 years of experience in the Army and the 4-year degree from the United States Military Academy. But I said nothing. I was disturbed and felt I might be shuffled out of the war, and I went to St. Louis to see General Fremont. And on the August the 19th, well, he told me to go to Jefferson City, Missouri, and take command there. I did. Gratz Brown was there, Missouri politician. He was really glad to see me because the place was bedlam. Again, you've got troops hijacking citizens and making them take the loyalty oath, stealing chickens and all manner of livestock, drinking, gambling, recruiting on every corner. Men were taking it upon themselves to recruit, and they were all recruiting different lengths of time, different branches of the service, guaranteeing men things that they couldn't guarantee. I stopped all of that. I brought order to that camp and to that city. And I was there for several days. And I began drilling the troops. And on August the 28th, Jefferson C. Davis shows up, Colonel Jefferson C. Davis. Now, there are two things distinctive about Colonel Jefferson C. Davis. One is his name. He's not related to Jefferson Davis of the Confederacy. The other is that he was at Fort Sumter and surrendered with Captain Anderson. He's now a colonel. He's in the Missouri district, and Fremont sent him to Jefferson City with instructions for me to report immediately to Fremont's headquarters. I had one aide, Hillier had joined me by that time. I brought Davis up to the president on what I had done with the troops and orders and various items that I dealt with. And I packed a valise, and within an hour, I was on my way on the cars to St. Louis to meet with Fremont, which was difficult to do. It's like going into a royal palace. I've never seen so many people buzzing around with so much braid. But I finally did get in to see Fremont, and he had selected me to go to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and take command of an effort there to quell Meriwether Jefferson Thompson of Virginia. Now he's living a native of Missouri with the Missouri State Guard, and it didn't escape my attention that Fremont could have named Pope to do that, John Pope. Pope was in command of the Missouri, between the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers. He could have picked Benjamin Prentiss, another Brigadier General, but he chose me, even though he told people I wasn't impressive in my appearance. In fact, I was in civilian clothing when I reported to him there in late August, because I'd given my colonel's uniform to another officer that needed it. So my Brigadier General uniform was not yet finished at my tailor in New York City. So I was in civilian clothing, rude dress actually, and Fremont still selected me for that position to be in command of the southeastern district of Missouri. But when I left, he did tell me it would be a really good idea if you got a uniform, General, and I tried to expedite the getting of the uniform. So on August the 30th, I arrived at Cape Girardeau, and that was the same day that General Fremont issued his Emancipation Proclamation order, saying essentially that in Missouri, all property of people rebelling against the United States would be seized, including slaves, and the slaves would be set free. This caused no end of consternation to the population and to President Lincoln, who ordered Fremont to rescind it. Fremont refused. Lincoln ordered him again to rescind it, and Fremont refused. That would not bode well for General Fremont. But on September the 1st, I became assumed command of the Southeastern District of Missouri, which included that area, southern Illinois, western Kentucky, and even parts of northwestern Tennessee. It was a district with undefined limits, but included those. It also, those areas. It also included the Tennessee, the Ohio, the Mississippi, and the Cumberland rivers, all within my command district. And I issued order number 1 on September the 1st. First order was an effort to catch Meriwether Jefferson Thompson, M. Jeff Thompson. I called him the swamp fox of the Confederacy. He laid out in the swamplands, wetlands, and I did it sarcastically. He thought it was a very nice title. He thought about Francis Marion and the Revolution, and he proudly, I understand, carries that sobriquet, the swamp fox of the Confederacy, that I gave him. But I had a 3-part movement of troops from Cape Girardeau, from Bird's Point, and in Jackson, Missouri, about 10 miles from Cape Girardeau. And I had Prentiss move his troops down from Ironton. And when I told him, the commanding officer at Jackson, when General Prentiss comes through, he's to stay there, and I'll come out and meet him and give him tomorrow and give him his orders on September the 2nd. Well, I left my office there at the old Courthouse of Common Pleas up on the hill there in Cape Girardeau, and the morning of September 2nd, and as I left, I saw General Prentiss and his escort coming down the street the block over. I was a bit nonplussed with this, went around the other way and cut him off, intercepted him, asked him why was he there. He's supposed to be in Jackson. And he peremptorily told me, "You don't command me." And I said, "Yes, I do." "No, you don't." And I said, "We need to step into my office." And we spent about an hour there. I didn't keep track, but people who listened, apparently, it got loud, said we were in there about an hour. And I came to make him believe, I thought, that I was in command. So he exited the office, took his troops to 10 miles back to Jackson, where he had been ordered to be, and promptly placed himself under arrest, bid his troops farewell, and went to St. Louis to see General Fremont, and complained bitterly about my having illegally taken his command. By this time, somebody has told General Fremont about the rules and regs, and they said, or he said to Prentice, he does outrank you. And Prentice didn't take this well and requested that he be sent somewhere in that area. He was sent to Mason, Missouri, didn't want to be in the Western Theater or anywhere near me, and I think that was unfortunate because Prentice is a good man. And by making the request he did, he's removing himself from combat and opportunities for advancement in command that he otherwise would have had. I think it's unfortunate. But it's noteworthy for me that my first fight that I thought I was going to have with Tom Harris didn't occur, but I did learn the enemy was as afraid of me as I was of him. My first real fight was not with the Confederate forces. It was with a professional officer, a peer officer of mine, but I prevailed. And then on September the 3rd, the Confederates moved into Kentucky. Gideon Pillow moved in and violated the Kentucky neutrality, which was a tremendous political mistake. And Leonidas Polk came in with him. They took Columbus, Kentucky, Hickman, Kentucky, had their eyes on Paducah, Kentucky. Pillow went across the river to Belmont, just across from Columbus, Kentucky, set up Camp Albert Sidney Johnston, and they were sending troops into the interior of Missouri to link up with Sterling Price and move northward and harass federal forces in that area. And on the 4th of September, I arrived at Cairo, Illinois, still wearing civilian clothing, and took command of the southeastern district of Missouri. And Richard J. Oglesby was the colonel commanding. Well, on the 6th of September, I took Paducah, Kentucky, because on the night of the 5th, just my second night there, I got information that Polk was marching on Paducah, and that was at the mouth of the Tennessee and the Ohio rivers. I can't have that. So I telegraphed Fremont and said, if I don't hear anything from you to tell me not to, at 6:30 tonight on the 5th, I'm leaving to go to Paducah, Kentucky, and keep it from being taken by Confederate forces. I heard nothing, and the next morning we sent a force in to Paducah. They were expecting a Confederate force. The secession flags were all pulled down quickly, and I was there until about midday. I left General Charles Ferguson Smith in command, and I returned back to Cairo, Illinois, with eyes looking further south down the river to Columbus. And on the 13th of September, just a few days later, my next youngest brother, Simpson Grant, died of consumption. So I was obviously unable to attend his funeral. But before I left Paducah, I should like to say, I sent the state legislature a soothing note telling them I'm not here to take over. I'm here to protect federal or United States citizens from invading forces and so forth. So when I got back to Cairo, I had a telegram from General Fremont that said, if you feel strong enough to take Paducah. Well, I did, and I was back in Cairo. I also got a reprimand for having sent that note to the legislature, and that was appropriate to reprimand me. I had exceeded my authority. General Fremont said the general commanding the area should be the one to talk to civilian bodies, and he was right. Late in October, he decided to go after Sterling Price down in the southwestern corner of the state. Price is coming out of Arkansas, and I sent Richard Oglesby and about 3,000 troops down to the Belmont area and to go westward into Missouri. Then I got notice that troops were coming up through Arkansas and on the St. Francis River to come in behind Oglesby's troops, and I couldn't let that happen. So I'm planning a demonstration on both sides of the river on orders from General Fremont. And I sent Charles Ferguson Smith down the east bank to north of Columbus to keep Polk there, because Polk's got 144 guns on that bluff. And I went down the west side of the river and decided to make my demonstration into an attack on Belmont, because I couldn't leave Oglesby stranded and get caught between Price and more reinforcements coming in from out of Arkansas and across the river from Leonidas Polk in Columbus. So I decided to take Belmont, and I did. We fought a stiff battle, learned some lessons from that one. There are the Northern press reporters that say that that battle was unnecessary and that it was a bloody loss, and I was castigated mightily in the press. I would tell you that I accomplished all of my objectives. Oglesby was not stranded. The Confederates lost Camp Albert Sidney Johnston, and they never really used it again. We had a moral victory in that my troops were very pleased with themselves and what they'd done. So all in all, it was a victory for us. The Confederates claimed a victory because I had left the field. There was no need to stay at the field. It was a harrowing day for me, and I learned much, but it was a victory for us. On November the 2nd, I found out, though, that Fremont had been relieved. I fought the Battle of Belmont on the 7th. Well, David Hunter was brought in to relieve Fremont, and we hadn't heard that Fremont was out of authority yet. On November the 4th, I sent a number of men to here to Bloomfield, Michigan, as I said, just about 25 miles west of Cape Girardeau. And we were waiting to see what was going to happen with Fremont being replaced. And it turns out that two things occurred on this day of November the 9th of 1861. Henry Wager Halleck assumed command of this district, the District of the Mississippi, and I look forward to working with General Halleck. I have great respect for him. He'll be a good man to work under. And I found out too that on this day of November the 9th, that a newspaper was printed here in Bloomfield, Missouri, that newspaper men from civilian life who were in those Illinois regiments that were in town that I had sent here a few days ago, found that the newspaper office was empty and stocked. So as a lark, they decided to put out a military newspaper written by soldiers for soldiers, and they called it the Stars and Stripes, and they've actually put out an edition. So I need to go and read what they've written. They might have said something about me. But I think that it's time to bring this reflection to a close, because I've discussed everything I did in Missouri, not in great detail, but you have an idea of what was happening in Missouri through what I was doing, and how I want to emphasize how big the war was getting and how quickly it was getting that big. And then there are lighthearted moments like soldiers' impromptu production of a military newspaper by soldiers for soldiers, the Stars and Stripes. So for the moment, I must bid you adieu. I need to go read the Stars and Stripes here on November the 9th in Bloomfield, Missouri. Good day.